What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York, and on the phone we got Jon from Paralysis. Thank you for your time today, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you, man. I'm glad to be doing this.
Yeah, it's so awesome to have you here. The new album, Mob Justice, is scheduled to come out next week. Do you just want to talk about like how the making of this record was, and the recording and songwriting, mixing, all that fun stuff?
Yeah. So, it took us, I would say, about 4 to 5 months to, get all the riffs down and the ideas of what we wanted to write and everything just basically good to go for recording. And then last March we went to Chicago to Bricktop Studios with Andy Nelson. He's done a bunch of big bands, and we basically chose him out of just all of us kind of looking at our collection of like CDs or records or something, and just looking who recorded them, who produced them, who did whatever on them, and we kind of just wanted to pick and choose what we thought sounded the best to us. So we went to him last March, and then we stayed up there for about a week. We recorded all the instruments and everything and all the sample stuff in between the songs, and then we didn't really have all the lyrics set in stone, so we came back home, and I have like a decent recording setup at my house, so we basically just got the mic that we would be using on the record at Bricktop and took the span of like maybe May to September to get the vocals all done and just kind of really take our time with it. And then after that, it was just basically waiting for him to do the mixing, and then we went to Audio Siege in Portland with Brad Boatwright, and he did the mastering on it. And basically the whole process of this was to really just kind of take our time with it and not rush anything. And it took a while, but we're 100% happy with how it all came about. So
Yeah, the results seemed like they were worth it.
yeah, exactly. So
Yeah. Was there kind of like a preconceived idea of what you wanted Mob Justice to sound like, or was there kind of like a lot of improvising involved and things kind of like in a way fell into place, happy accidents, if you will?
all the writing really took place from our bass player Pat Hart, and he's crazy. He just really kind of sits in his room all day when he's not working and just basically writes. So he went into it with an idea, but it really just whatever was on his head at the time just kind of wrote, and he'd send it to me or the rest of us, and we kind of give our opinion on it, go in and change what needed to be changed, and then just went kind of back and forth like that, because him and the drummer Sam, they live in Florida, so we're really spread out from each other, where me and the guitar player Ron, we live up here in New Jersey, so we kind of go through all that writing process through the internet. So
You guys need a European member just to make it more complicated.
yeah, we gotta spread it out more.
Yeah, that'll be pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing I was kind of like curious about is because I feel like this record is kind of like very consistent. I feel like people who appreciate such a song like Master Manipulator could appreciate a song like Cut Short or Yet I Say or something like that. Like I feel like it's a very consistent, brutal thrash record, which is what really attracted me to it. Was there like, do you think maybe like the making of each song maybe gets a little bit easier as you get further and further more into songwriting mode?
Yeah, I mean, for me, speaking for Patrick, I think he's really kind of gotten in a groove now. He uses Guitar Pro, so basically he'll just sit there, kind of just hammer out riffs, and then put it into Guitar Pro where it's all the MIDI guitar and drums and bass and everything, so he can hear it. So it's not like he's just kind of recording on voice memos and it's a full song basically, and then if we wanted to put real instruments to it or put MIDI things that sound better to it, we get a real feel for what the song sounds like before we go into the studio. So I think right now he's definitely got a good groove of how to write everything. So
when it's being that Pat writes a lot of the material, when he presents it to you, do you like kind of maybe adjust your playing to it, or does Pat kind of want you to bring a little bit of your own mix, especially since you're the vocalist?
Yeah. The last record of Life Sentence, I wrote about half of it, And this time around, I really just didn't have any ideas. So basically, he just kind of wrote all the songs, and that's just how it kind of came about. And he was like, because when he writes a riff, he plays it completely different than I would play it, even though it's the same notes technically. So he's like, I definitely love to have you put your own spice on it, because that's kind of what makes it unique and not just solely mine. So yeah, I guess we could say that, where I kind of brought my own spice to the riffs, I guess.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with the technicality in the music, like, you know, with the riffs and the soloing. Like, do you have like a theoretical background at all in a way, or are you more of the self-taught?
I took lessons for about, I would say, 6 years, but it was really just me and the guitar teacher at the time just learning songs. It wasn't really like I was learning all the technical side behind it. Our lead guitar player, Ron, though, he's like the one that's fully into it, like technically. Like, he went to school for classical guitar, and I think he has a degree in that, so he knows how to play a lot of instruments, and he's the best musician out of all of us. But the other two, they're self-taught basically, and we're all kind of self-taught except for, well, I would say Ron teaches himself a lot too, but he went to college for it, so
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
One thing I was kind of like really curious about is because I feel like, you know, a lot of people refer to you as crossover thrash, and I was curious to what that exactly means, because like I always hear certain bands being called crossover. Does it mean that you combined elements with thrash or something like that? Because I do see some elements of like hardcore in it, like Cro-Mags or Sick of It All or stuff like that as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, from the start, I've always been into like the crossover, like DRI, Cro-Mags, like the Best Wishes era, all that stuff. So it's kind of like, from the start, we used to cover a lot of like hardcore songs and also cover a lot of metal songs, and then, you know, we kind of try to keep that simplicity to it from like the start. And then I guess now we sort of, as we've gotten older, because I'm, to some people, still pretty young. I'm 21, and we started as a band when we were in our early teens, like 14, 13. So we've definitely grown a lot with our music likes and everything, and we've definitely tried to throw some like death metal perspectives into the music and everything. So I guess when we consider ourselves crossover, it's like we're saying like we're crossover thrash into hardcore into death metal a little bit, where we're just kind of all trying to mesh those genres together and kind of make our own sound, if that makes any sense.
Definitely. It's fair to say you guys take inspiration from multiple sources, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Now, and I'd imagine, because, you know, you've played with like, you played with bands like DRI, but you've also played with like that tour you did with Cry6, which I sadly missed.
Yeah.
But that seemed like a modern like thrash metal like magic show. Like,
yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So do you sometimes maybe like adjust your set depending if you're playing with more like a more hardcore audience versus like a more metal audience?
Of course, we definitely have the songs that appeal more to the thrash kids than other songs, and vice versa, where like if we're playing with a couple hardcore bands or whatever, we'll have songs that will appeal more to people like that, and on the hardcore side. So we definitely throw our songs that work with that crowd towards people like that. So,
and I'd imagine it keeps it interesting and like playing in front of different people.
Definitely, and that's kind of what I always like. You know, I've always tried to say I don't want to stick to one thing, because I feel like that's how you kind of corner yourself into something, and it's like it's hard to get out. So I've always been, and we've always been down to play really whatever comes our way, and we're very open to do whatever. So
yeah, do like the most radio friendly tour ever, like play a show with like Hoobastank or something like that.
Yeah, that would would be pretty good.
Yeah. But, like, maybe you could explain this to me. I had this discussion with John from Lamb of God, like, the difference between, like, metal and hardcore. Because, like, thrash metal and hardcore are such in-your-face, brutally honest and raw forms of music. I never really understood how one could appreciate a band like Sick of It All and Cro-Mags and Agnostic Front and maybe not appreciate, you know, a Slayer or an Anthrax or something like that. Do you see much of a difference in those genres?
Not really. I mean, me and Pat, the bass player, we've definitely had our conversations about this because me and him are definitely very similar in what we like in bands and everything, and we kind of both get the whole hardcore thrash crossover type thing. And you know, what we kind of see in it is like it's more of like the people in it, not so much the music, because essentially we're all playing the same thing. We're all playing, you know, heavy riffs, fast drum beats, slow drum beats. You know, when like sometimes at work I'll have on Overkill and it'll have like a sick two-step beat in it, and I'm like, how do people not in the like hardcore genre not like something like this? And then same thing in the hardcore genre where there's like some sick like fast parts, and I'm like, how do thrash kids not like that? But I feel like it's more of like they see what comes with it, like, you know, the whole moshing aspect of it all, and the way people dress. Like, you know, thrash kids have the jackets and the tight, you know, jeans and everything, and the hardcore kids just like the loose clothing and everything. And maybe I feel like that has a lot to do with it more than the actual music aspect itself.
Yeah, like I could understand people like liking thrash metal over like black metal or death metal or something like that, because there's a lot of a lot of distinct differences in the sound. But like hardcore and thrash, I mean, I feel like they're brother sister almost.
Exactly, they kind of go hand in hand with each other, and it's like I feel it's more of the people clashing heads than the music itself clashing heads.
Yeah, people always have something to complain about, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to playing live, like, is there maybe a similar aspect into playing live as there is with songwriting, or is playing live a completely different experience than just simply songwriting or practicing in a rehearsal space or something like that?
I would definitely say it's different because, I mean, when I'm practicing, you know, the riffs and everything by myself in my room or whatever, even just if I'm trying to stand up and kind of move around and play too, it's still not nearly the same as, you know, playing with the band in a full or playing in front of people and seeing people's reactions and stuff. Like, I feel like people giving their reaction to your music gives it a whole nother aspect to playing than just, you know, playing in front of a computer screen to the song recorded on your laptop or something like that. So
yeah. Do you almost have to like practice the art of crowd interaction? Is there almost kind of like a choreography you have to master before you take the stage?
I would say no. I mean, for me, I know a lot of bands do it where they, you know, they'll practice in the rehearsal space, like what they'll do at certain parts and stuff like that. But, you know, at least like the three of us that are not behind a drum kit, we're all kind of interacting with each other. You know, if I run into one of them by accident, you know, it's not planned or anything. Nothing's ever planned. So it's kind of like we all just kind of do what you know, what comes to head in that moment. So nothing's ever really planned.
Yeah, I guess that makes you guys more real, for sure.
Yeah, we've always definitely tried to keep it that way. Like, I don't care what I wear on stage. None of us care what we wear on stage. We'll just, if I'm wearing, you know, bright colored shorts and a black colored t-shirt, like, I don't care. Where most people, or maybe some people, will be like, oh, I have to change something like that out before I start playing. So
you gonna go on stage in a clown suit one day?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
That would be pretty metal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's kind of like going back to the whole genre thing. To you, what makes a band a thrash metal band? Do you think it's an attitude? Do you think it's a sound? Do you think it's like a certain style? Like when I go to a thrash metal show, or a show that's deemed as thrash metal, like when I go to see a band like Metallica, or when I saw Creator or any of those bands, I knew the type of people I was going to see. Like, I knew I was at a thrash metal show. Like, to you, what makes thrash?
I would say, like, back to what we were talking about before about, you know, the people. It's like, I feel like that has a lot to do with it. You know, you see everybody in the same outfit where they were all wearing the high tops and the tight jeans and the jackets cut off with all the patches on it. I feel like that's what really kind of gives it that element to say that's a thrash show. And, you know, definitely the music too, but a lot I think has to do with the people in it, because I mean, if you were to play the same music to a bunch of people that are wearing whatever, I mean, I feel like it would definitely give it a different aspect on everything. So
For sure. Another thing I was curious about is with the lyricism, do you like to leave lyrics open to interpretation, or is there a certain subject matter that you try to address within Paralysis?
I definitely like the idea of, you know, people having their own interpretation for it, because obviously if I say something here, you might take a completely different thought about what I said. So that's what I love about that stuff, because it's definitely because it gives you your own way of thinking. You know, you're not just, you know, reading something and being told what to think. Mm-hmm. So I definitely love that idea. And, you know, there are definitely, every song has our, like, me, the drummer Sam, and the guitar player Ron, we all write the lyrics mainly, and we all have our definite set ideas of what we're writing about, and like certain scenarios that we're writing about, but we would never say, like, to somebody, like, if they came up to us and like, oh yeah, I really like this song because it spoke to me in this way or whatever, we would never say like, oh, that's not what it's about this. Mm-hmm. You know? So
I know that Pat writes a good portion of the music, but has there ever been a time where lyrics or a subject matter was presented to him and maybe that could have influenced how he would lay out the arrangement of the music?
Maybe in the future. I mean, in the past, it's definitely been always the riffs first, the lyrics last, because that's just kind of how we always have, you know, ran. But definitely the drummer Sam, he's a couple years new to the band, and he's definitely like a really good lyricist, and I can totally see him having a song fully written before it's even, like, the riffs are even written. So I could definitely see in the future, you know, if Sam brings it to Pat and presents the idea, he might have a whole different way of thinking about how to write a song, or write that song particularly, or whatever. So who knows?
Yep. And finally, the final question I wanted to ask you is, being a New Jersey band, like, you know, I've interviewed so many, like, bands from New Jersey, you know, from the early days of, you know, Overkill, as well as bands like God Forbid and Dillinger Escape Plan. But like, there's also a thriving underground I've noticed right now, like with you guys and Sicarian and Dead City Crown and so many other great New Jersey bands. Is there kind of like a scene that you guys are active in, or is right now the goal for Paralysis to kind of get outside your state lines a little bit more to spread the word?
I would say right now, yeah, I think we're kind of more looking to spread out more. Over the past 3 or 4 years, we've just been mainly just touring. Like, if we get hit up for a show for, like, the tri-state area, we'll definitely pick that. But since our two members live in Florida now, it's definitely harder to stay local or do local shows whenever we really want, as opposed to a couple years ago. So mainly now, it's like, you know, we get hit up with a show with, you know, Sicarian or whatever, we'll definitely take it and then build a tour around it almost. So it makes it worth its while for them to come up here and everything. So that's kind of the direction we're going in. We're definitely looking to get to Europe. Hopefully our label that's putting out the album is in the Netherlands. So hopefully we can make something like that work. And
Roadburn Festival.
Yeah, of course, that would be awesome. But yeah, so we're just definitely looking to expand as much as possible in the next couple years with this release. So we'll see.
It's fair to say, though, New Jersey, I mean, I've always considered New Jersey to just be the sixth borough of New York at this point, because like, the scene there seems to be incredible. Like, a lot of cool venues, a lot of great bands as well.
Definitely. It definitely has its perks over here. So
Yeah. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today.
No, man, thank you.
Of course. Mob Justice schedules to come out on the 29th. Is there just obviously, thanks to a certain virus that shall not be named. But I know that tours and shows are on hold at the moment, but I'd imagine when all this, goes away, we'll probably be seeing you guys on the road quite a bit, right? Is there any way fans could support you for the time being?
Oh, yeah, we got pre-orders up on our Bandcamp right now for the album and a bunch of merch, and we'll have that merch up for sale after the pre-orders are down too. And really, we're just gonna try to keep as active as we can right now without touring or anything. And once we can get back to touring, we're gonna do it as soon as possible. So
Awesome. Well, Jon, great to talk to you. Everybody, we are here with Jon of Paralysis. Mob Justice coming out on May 29th. Buy it then when supplies last forever. We'll see you next time on Heavy New York.